strings. So we'll say at something like strings are the number of characters or anything what we write inside a single quotes or double quotes, right? So we can define. Okay, in the assignment, one question was there: how many of them are the variables or kind of strings? That question was just half of the right. I didn't find it to complete because some of the student gave me, so what is that? So that is incomplete question basically. Okay, so some of you have written the definition of string and the variable. That's okay, fine, good. So that is fine. So strings are what I said. They are the characters written inside the single or the double quotes. Okay, there's spelling error. Single or the double quotes you have, right? Still coming others. Okay. So we have various type of operations in string. So we'll go to it one by one. In the string operation, we'll going in the later one. Right. So there in the string we have string concatenation and string replication. It's a very important term for the string. So for the meaning of an operator may change on the basis of whatever you write. Okay. So however, in the string, if we write it kind of a, let's say, string is what I said, anything inside your single quote or your double quote. This can be same for now, right? So single quote and double quote means the same for now, right? But you should not use like starting from the double quote and ending from the single quote. That is not probably good, right? So if you mean to write a string, uh, let's say it's I, and this could be name of a person, right? This could be a name here, and let's say J. This could be the age of a person. Not age could not be a string. This could be the driving license. Right? Anything you can write on the names or the driving license on like those. Right? So these are nothing but the kinds what I take in the some alphabet characters plus some of the numeric characters, or you can say as alphanumeric characters. Okay, so there is particularly all the alphabets and there are the alphanumeric characters. Okay, so these are a kind of a string, we can say. If you check on the type, so you might be see that these are the string. So string is particularly denoted by str. Okay. So when we operate anything with the strings, when we learned the operators yesterday, so if we apply the basic operators of a string, so if we apply the, let's say we are having a string called as, uh, let's say apple, alright, and if I want it to be printed for the 5 times, what I'll do is just I'll multiply it by 5. That's all you will be seeing it apple for 5 times. But instead of you, if you want some gaps over there, what you'll do is, so anything if you write inside a string and then you operate it there, so it will be printed as it is written, or whatever you write, the similar basis on whatever you have written in the uh, quotes over there, right? So that would be very much similar to that. Alright. So if you write the gaps over what would have been done, you have to write apple, then you have to provide the gaps and then for the 5. And it will be printed like gaps with the apple. Okay. So these are something called as your string replication. When the multiply operator is used as one string value and one integer value, it becomes a string replication. Okay. So you must be knowing the facts. These are called as your string replication methods, right? So what is a concatenation method? So concatenation is something when we add up two of the strings, right? So let's say there is a first name of a person. There might be a first name of a person, and I'm adding the, let's say, age of them. Let's say 45 is the age. So this might not get added up because these are the two different kinds, integer and your string. So you might have to make it as 45 and then you can add it up. So it will be added as first name and 45. So you might get some gaps over there to find it on, and this will be okay. But meanwhile, if you write to print the first name comma 45, it will be getting printed over there. Okay, these are the basic things I am doing now. Alright, so these are kind of a just strings. Now we deal with the variables. So how many kind of variables we can have? How many type of variable things we can have, right? So variable can be only a word. Variable can only use letters or numbers or underscore, and it can begin with a number. It can't begin with a number. Cannot, right? So we dealt with the variable basics yesterday, right? So we have completed all the things. So we also dealt with the first program, how to write it as your, right? We took the input function, how to take input from the user. Now input can be specified in what type of you want, right? It can be specified as if you want the integer type or float type. So how to take decisions on when to take integer or to float. Listen, you have to make it decide, like when you want to let's say, take a example, like if you want to make a report card of a particular or just a classification report of particular uh, let's say student, right? So what you'll do, you will take the entry of the marks. So for the entry of the marks, what you will take it as, let's say marks is equals to input, and then you write enter marks. So what the type you will be getting is the string one, right? So instead of that, if I want that the marks should be entered in the sorry, float value, because it can be 25.3 or something like that, right? So what you'll do is you'll just apply a float over here and you will take the float inside. So now you can take the input of the marks and it will be said as, let's say 67.3. So if you see the type of the marks now, if we see the type of the marks, so probably we'll be getting it as a kind of a float. This is okay. So that is how we print it basically. So if you want to find a length of something, if you want to find a length, basically you can pass the len function. There is a len function, so you can pass it there to store or to, sorry, not store, to just count, or you can say yes. So it basically you pass the function to but just count how many characters are there in the or particular string, or let it be a list or dictionary, anything, right? So what is that? That is termed as your the len function. Okay, so you just what this do basically, you pass this to calculate or to find, you can write find the number of instances that will be we can name it as kind of a literals, write it as kind of an identifiers and so on in a data type, right? So you can pass it on there and you can just calculate. So for example, if we see, if we write it as kind of, let's take it as x is equals to, just taking a list over there, I'll continue what are these things, okay? Just take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, something like that. Okay, 3 has been missing there. Someone came, Rohit. Alright. So you can find out that we have some number of elements. So if you want to see the type, the number of elements in the x, we'll just pass on length of x and then we'll run it. So we'll getting the number of x we have, right? So that is particularly 9 into there. So this is how it runs on, and these are the things we do in the len one. So yes, so assignments have been completed, right? So now you know the basics one. So we'll go to the modules of the type of everything. Like for the, we have completed the arithmetic one, so we'll go to the assignment operators. Okay. So the assignment operators, okay, first start with the comparison, or you can say as a logical operators. So when going to the Boolean values, so Boolean values is kind, you can say, while the integer or floating type or string data types are just compared of, and you need to compare them. So you need to work with some of the operators which are called as your Boolean operators, right? Or you can say as for the logical, not logical, comparison operators. So we're dealing with those. We write it as comparison operators. Okay, so these particularly, as the name you can see, it basically compare the two values and evaluate down to a single Boolean value, right? So what it does is compares two values is and break down to a Boolean value. That's all. Okay. There it is. So it does the same. Okay. Now how it does, basically there's some how it does basically these things, right? So you just pass on the comparison things in the left hand side or the right hand side, and then it just work on, right? Okay, so we'll see that. So let's say we have the type of operators we discussed yesterday. As for the equals to, not equals to, we have equals to like this. We have not equals to, we have the greater than equals to, less than equals to, greater than, and the less than. Okay. Now these itself are a huge thing to work on. Okay, we have various things in the comparison one to work on. Okay, so let's take one particular thing. What are the functions of all these? Okay, now see, this equals to might you use there in the positions where you want to compare whether the things are equal or not. Okay, now if you want to see whether a things are equal, so you will be comparing it with the equals. Let's take, I want to compare whether this 5 is equals to 10 or not. So it will first check it out there and then will return you a Boolean value according to it. Okay, if I run this is exactly false, right? So if I check the, just let me take it as for the type of 5 equals to the type of 10. So whether this is equal or not. 5 type or 10 type is equal, right? Because both are the integer. Similarly, if I take it as so, that might be false, right? That's 10.0, and then you get to it for your integer and the complex. So understood, right? So these are the things we do basically there. Right, moving ahead. So comparison, this single equals to is used for comparing of the values, right? So moving ahead with the, if you go with the next one, that is a not equals to, that is exactly the reverse of it. There you check it whether these things are not equals to or not. Okay. So if not equals to is a correct statement you are writing 5 is not equals to 10, that is a correct statement, so it will return you the true. Understood? And if you write it correct, if you write a wrong statement and compare it, it will give you the values over there, that is a true or a false. Okay. So these particularly compare the two values and evaluate down to a single Boolean value to you, right? So you can pass it on. Let's say we have x and y, we have a and b, and we're giving it as, let's 2 and 4. Let's take it as for the x and capital X. Alright, we have these things. Now see, the very basic thing, if we come to compare the a equals b, it's false, right? How it false? Because the strings itself have some of the ASCII values, right? Some of the ASCII values on the basis of which they are compared. So we can find out that, okay, in the number, in the criteria of the numbers, we compare whether the number are greater or not, and then we come to a solution that it is equal or not. Okay, when it comes to the string, what happens? It just check it on and see it on the basis of their ASCII values, right? So that can be find using the OR. Just particularly find the ASCII value. So if we write for the A, it says the A, or let's take the X, capital X ASCII value is 88. Similarly, if we'll find for the small x. So I find it to be 88 and 120. You can see the difference of the ASCII values. So no of the things are equal if you compare the x and x. Okay, this is how it works. So yes, going up with this pace of this all. Okay, so we have seen equals to operation, not equals to operation. Similarly, these are the basic things now for the greater than and less than. These are the basic ones, right? Okay, so this particularly for the greater one, and then you can go with the lesser one. Yep. So this is equal. And what this stands for? Here you might take it as it will check for the two of the conditions. First, it will check whether this is a particular thing is a greater than 67 or not. If it is greater than 67, or if it is not greater than 67, even if it is greater, it will check for the second condition that whether this equals to or not. If it is equals to, if it is not equals to, and if it is not the greater than also, so it will return you false. If any of the conditions satisfies correct, so it will return you true. That's all. Okay, this is how it works. So okay, 75 is greater than 67, that satisfies, so it's true. Let's take x is less than 7, less than y, so it's true. What are the x and y that we see? It's 2 and 4, I think. Yeah. So we have got this value. Okay, these are the things which you deal here. Okay, these are the you can say for your comparison operator. Basically, you compare the things there. Okay, and these are very important in again making things simpler. Right. Moving on. Now let's see the Boolean operators. How these Boolean operators work on. So Boolean operators are divided into three parts of that, where you get the true false values. So they are divided into three of the parts. First one is called for you. So they are divided into three parts. Now there you get the first part as your AND, the second part as your OR, and the third part as your NOT. That's all. You get these three things inside your Boolean operators. Understood? Now, inside these three things, we get to know about much of a new term called as your binary operator. So now as you can see the name also saying binary. So why it says binary? Because it takes two Boolean values and then it compares to down a single Boolean value, right? So in the binary operator we have two kinds, that are and you have the OR there, because they compare with the two values of the Boolean ones, right? So let's go to see. So here we come up with a term of called as a truth table. So what exactly is a truth table? Let me write it for. So if you see, let it be here. That is good to understand. For you to understand this, that can be a power. So what exactly is a truth table? So it shows you the every possible result of a Boolean operator. That's it. Okay, with the very basic thing, it just shows you the every possible result which can come from comparing a two Boolean operators or getting it from there. So you write it probably like, if I write it, right? So we get that definition. If you write it, so you can write it as a truth table. Shows you the every possible outcomes Boolean operator. That's it. Okay. So you get the every possible outcome. So what kind of truth table we have? We have for the three of the types of the Boolean operator. We have AND, OR, and NOT. For the them we have the Boolean operator truth table there. So in the truth table, what happens? We have AND operator, which particularly stands for the plus. The OR operator stands for the multiplication, and not is the just of the everything negation, we can say, right? So these are the things. Let's go one by one. So if we go with the AND one, if we write for the truth table of AND, I will say this stands for the plus. So here you come to see that if your values are true, and you are applying the AND in between, and you're comparing it with the true. So there is a very simple logic in these things. I'll let you know. Let me write this first one, then I'll copy and then you get to know it. Alright. See what I have written is, just make 1 minute. Alright. If you run this, okay, there is some, let me give some gaps. So you can find done that in a true truth table of a true, or you can say AND operator. So you get true and true as your true. A true and false as false, false, true, false, and false, false, false. Right? What does this means? This means that when you apply AND between two variables or something like that, what when you get the true outcome, only if your outcomes of both the sides, you can say, if you are applying AND in between of the two variables, only you will be getting true when both the sides have a value of a true, or both the side are correct value have. Okay, so if any of them is having a false value, you will be getting the false of the outcomes. It can be false and false, both can be false, so you'll be getting a false statement, false outcome. You can get false and true false, you can get true false false. So there are things. Okay, so only if both the things are correct, only of both the situations, you'll be getting over true. Okay, similarly AND works on, similarly your OR works as the AND works. We have OR there as you can say multiplication operator. So these stands for true. If you write it as, so let me write the true here stands like as 1, and the false stand as for the 0. Okay, you can call this as the true as the ones and the false as the 0. So that is particularly good to know, right? So 1 plus 0 gives you 1, 1 plus, you can write it for like that. Okay, so there you multiply, when you multiply with all these things, you will get to learn something different here. So here what happens in any of the case, if it is true, it's true. It is any of the cases true, you will be getting here true. Here too, if one of the situation is true, you will be getting true over there. And if both the things are false, definitely you will be getting false statement, right? These are the things what happen there. And in the negation case or the not case, what you have only two kinds. So there you have, if you write a not of a true boolean value, you will be getting a false, definitely. And if you go with the false one, you will be getting the true there, right? So these are the things to be mentioned up in the operators of these things, right? So we get a questions up from that. So let's take up with the bit of questions. Okay. So what's the time there? 9:34. So we'll not go with the questions now. We'll study much. All right. Moving on. So now there are some of the important questions to deal on. I'll going with those. So first focus on the next type. So we saw how the comparison operator works, how the arithmetic operators works, and how these Boolean operators works on. Okay, so basically you apply and all these things to check on. So let's say we are having x and y, right? We are having x and y 2 as 4, and someone gave an operator. Yeah. Oh, I might be done something wrong there, right? Oh shit. Sorry. This might be went off. No problem. Okay, so we have x and y. We similarly have a and okay, that's small. Similarly have a and b. Now to see whether how to apply and where to apply and over there, right? So let's take that we are checking for any condition. Let's say we have x and y equals 2 and 4. So I'm checking that whether x is equals to 2 and whether my y is equals to 4 or not. Okay. So I'll get the result as my true. Why? Because my x is true. Here I get a true statement and we apply and over there, and here I get a true statement. So both the kinds I am getting a true statement over there. So that is exactly correct, right? So if I write x is greater than 2 and I write x is equals to 4, so if any of the condition comes false, so x is not greater than 2 there. So if any of the condition becomes false, you will be getting a false statement in the AND case. But if you write the same statement in the OR case, there what happens, if any of the conditions is correct, you will be getting a true statement or true meaning there. Okay, so okay, there are capital X, I think. What is that? Why it is? You can apply here Y. Alright, so any of the situation comes correct, you will be getting a true statement. So this is the basic functionality of a Boolean thing you just apply on. Okay, so moving ahead now. So we come to see up the things for called as your control flow statements or the loops. Okay, you can say. Okay, so these are the basics now. So any problems in understanding the Boolean operators and so on. So basically your true and true will be giving you true, true and false will be giving you false and so on, right? So the not operator will just work. If you write not of true, you will be getting false. If you write not of true, you will be getting true. If you write kind of like not of, let's say true, so you'll be getting up there. It's true, right? So this works similarly there. If you write not of true there, so that probably will giving you the false. This is how it works, right? So yes, I think you might have understood those things. So yeah, moving with the flow control statements, you can say on, right? So the elements of the flow control is kind of where you just make a use of conditions. Okay, so conditions you can write it as the Boolean expressions where you just make more than two options to move on to come with some of a true or false values. So let me write it as. So before moving to conditions, let us do some of the questions for that. So it's task B3. So let's do some of the questions before moving to the conditions one, so that you might get it off. So the very basic things you can just start off with the is that you can write it on like take, so let me take to input from the user and compare whether they are equal equal or not, right? Just that. Compare whether they are equal or not. That is a very simple thing. Don't use if and else there because we haven't learned the if and else. Alright, so you can go with that. There's H missing out. So this might be our first question for that. Okay, you can just take any two numbers from the user and then you can just come up with the this comparing out those things, right? So the next question for you will be like you can take the three inputs now and then you can compare. You can write it as take your three inputs. These are the questions you get many times. Three inputs. Okay, yes. So start doing these things. So you have questions, take two input from the user and compare whether they are equal or not. So go and start working on that. So the next one is take three inputs from the user and compare whether any of them are equal or not. Okay, these are the some two things. We get to have some more types for that. Okay, that should be code. Go and start working for the things and you can write your, you can give your, once you are done with your program, one program, you can just WhatsApp in the group. Okay, I'll check it out there whether it's correct or not. Yes, so the next type would be, let's say, take, you can say as let's say, suppose passing marks kind of 35.0. Okay, and suppose passing marks is this. So what you do is you take inputs of marks and take input of the total marks. Just only take the input of the total marks and check whether it is greater than the passing mark. Don't take it, the total marks might not be equal, so do one thing, take the input of, in particular, let's take science. Okay, these are your questions. Yeah, so you have some around, how many questions? 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have almost 5 to 6 minutes. Yeah, let me zoom the questions and you can just start working. And after the completion, what I said, just write the things in your WhatsApp, get it there. Okay, so yeah, start working. Yes, you are correct. I was wrong there. Okay, I just messed it out there. Yes, start. open. I have to see the WhatsApp there. Meanwhile, those are very easy to just complete it in the 5 minutes. So anyone of that completed? Anyone or two, first two or first three programs might have completed, I think. And start sending your answers there. You can start your sending in the respective groups. Okay. Just looking up there. Anyone completed? Anyone's? So probably have 2 to 3 minutes left on. Make a habit of making these things fast, okay? Because in coming times you'll be getting these questions and you'll just getting 20-25 seconds to work on. So make a habit of fast typing and just grooming up your brain very fast there. A equals to input. No, that is wrong. That is wrong. just make this integer before an input and inside int input, then enter a number over there. Okay. That is the wrong one you might be doing there. Just complete and leave in your WhatsApp. I'm sitting there online seeing the screen. Harita has gave something. Input enters a number, and the number is 1, print number is greater than 1, false number is false, input is greater than 3. Slightly just taken out like these things. Alright, I'll probably number 1, number 2, number 2, 3, and number 2, and number 3, 1 by 5, n that's exactly correct. Okay, Harita, you got it all good. Okay, now you have only 1 to 1.5 minutes left there. Okay, just work fast. Alright, meanwhile, let's start solving from the first one. Right, so you have to take the two inputs from the user, and one has sent. Okay, I'll do it now and then we'll check. So you'd have to take two inputs, and then you just have to compare whether they are equal or not. That input can be of any type. That can be integer, that can be float, that can be a string. It depends, because it's not specified that you have to take some two integer inputs. Or if you want, you can take in the input the integer 1. Once you have done the input of the number, what I'll do is just I have to check whether they are equal or not. So I'll print whether these are equals or not. That's all. So let's take 5 and 10, and that's all false. So they are not equal. That's all. So next we have 3 inputs from the user and compare whether they are equal or not. Let's copy these. Paste again. Let's make it Z. So we have 3 inputs from the user now, and we'll see whether they are equal or not. So let's say my all numbers are the x. Okay, so I'm checking my all numbers as x, and that is not a, that is x. So these are x equals, you can write it as x equals to y, and y equals to, you can say it on like x equals to y, and your y equals to z. Okay, so that, and probably your z equals to x. So if these 3 are just equal then to each other, so that could be coming inside my all numbers. Alright, then I'll be printing all numbers and the result. All numbers are equal or not, whether they are true or false. Similarly, that can be for any of the numbers. So in any of the numbers, what I'll do is I'll be using OR there. So there will be any of the numbers. So any of the numbers if come true, that might be 1 or that. Okay. So compare it's whether it's equal or not. It's not say to just print which one is correct. Okay. write it as sorry. So any numbers probably you can write it for any number, right? So we'll be getting our answers from there, whether it is equal or any number of them are equal or not, like that. Okay. So if we run this, we'll see out. So it says all numbers are not true, but some of the numbers or any of the numbers are true. Okay, this is how it comes. Alright, moving ahead, is there any problems with anyone now? So let's take two input and check whether the sum is greater, GREA, greater than 5 or not. That's again very easy. You'll just have take two inputs, taken two of the inputs, and then you have to check whether the sum is greater than 5 or not. So I'll check it. Okay, so what you'll do is you will take a sum of all these. So your sum will be x plus y, right? So you'll print without using the if else. What you'll do is sum is greater. So you'll be printing the sum greater than 5. Similarly, you will be taking it as sum is greater than 5. That is okay, right? So if it is greater than, just you have asked for printing that whether it is greater or not. So that's all. So if you run 1 point, or let's say 1 only because we are taking integer. So let's take 1 and let's take 3. So sum is not greater than 5. Right? It's 3 plus 1, 4, right here. So these are the things you deal with. Okay. Okay. Now the last one is kind of, suppose your passing marks is 35.0. Take input of the science marks and return whether the student passed or not. So that's again very easy. Let's first define my passing marks. So my passing marks are that's 35.0, and what I'll do is I'll take the marks obtained by the students. So marks obtained is, I'll be taking this as an input of float, and I'll take there as the input. Then I'll write that enter your science marks, so on, right? And then I'll print the status of his marks, whether its marks is, so passed will be basis on the result. Passed will be basis on the result. So marks obtained greater than 35.0. If it is greater than 35.0, then only your student will be passed. So passed status would be either true or either false, right? If you run this, let's take 45.2, so pass status is true. So the student has passed on, right? So without making the use of if or else, you can do a lot of things, right? So you can just add up two numbers, you can find the square root. Yeah, obviously that question is also important. Sometimes you get it as there. Find the square root of a number. So yes, right? Or it says write a program to find out the square root of a number. It says like that. There I have to find the square root of a number. How will you find it? Yes, logic. Square root of a number. Don't use the module of math.sqrt. Okay, the very basics of these things. How you will find the square root? Yes, waiting for your responses, guys. Anyone? Okay, let me ask to anyone of that. Let's ask from Harita. Harita, how will you find the square root there? Easy, easy, very easy. Let's apply the logic. with the help of, yeah, exactly, with the help of star star, you can exponentiation. Okay. You can use that to find out the square root of a particular number. So again, that is very easy to find out. That is num into 0.5 with testing correctly. So you just take an input from there and then you just go with the 0.5 of that, and you will be getting the square root from this. Okay. So that can be also found in two of the methods. Okay, that can be found in the two of the methods for any. You can use the maths.sqrt, or either you can use the just sqrt thing to find out that your square root. Even if you have one more function for that, that is your evaluation. So that you might get in the examination. So eval function particularly used. Okay, let me write a program for you, and then you will understand it. So let's suppose I write my number to be the input. Let's take it to be the integer. Let's say this is my number, and now I'll be finding the square root. So numbers square root is nothing but the number multiplied by 0.5, right? So just start. So the spread will be the square root of the number is num sqrt. Alright, so square root of the number is nothing but the num square root value. So just write our number, let's say 25. So the square root of that is 5.0. Okay, these are the kind of for the positive numbers. Like now, when you want to find the square root of a just a real number or complex numbers, so what happened that in that case? So when you want to find the square root of a complex number or like that, you'll have to import a module of a complex type. That is called C math module, right? So for to find the square root of the real numbers and the complex numbers, you will be having a module of the C math. So there you have to write the C math, and then you take again the numbers similarly, apply the same logic. Okay, so now you take these all things. So now here what you will do is, here you can also take the input to evaluate. In place of integer, you can write it as eval. Okay, this is something you will be evaluating the things. I'll discussing why I'll use this. So you can write it as such. You can instead you can take your number to be anything. You can just take from here from the user to, and either you can take it by manually whatever you want to write. Okay, so to take the user input, to take the input from the user while calculating for the square root of the complex or real, you will be using eval out there. Okay, then the number square root will be same, but just a bit of complexities. So there you have math module. So it basically C math dot, and then you have a lot of things to find. Sine or inverse sine of that, exponent, infinite, is close infinity, everything. Okay, so I'll be finding the square root. So this is the square root of that. So square root of the number. Okay, that can be the square root of a number. And the last thing again say, so if you run this, let's take any other thing. Let's take 1 plus 2j. So the square root of 1 plus 2j would be probably this. Okay, so you'll be getting your results in some of these manners. So what happens if you don't take an evaluation? So take it with the input. So take 1 plus 2j. So probably you'll be getting an error. That is an illiteral kind of things. Okay. So in this program, why we use the square root function basically. Okay. So the function of the C math, that is a complex mathematics, this kind of a module. So when you have seen now that we have used the eval one, so it was working out there. So we'll use the eval. So what this does basically, someone is saying something. So basically, we use this function instead of the float or kind of your input to convert that particular input inside the complex numbers. Okay, So when you want to just make your input in the complex number type, so you'll be using the eval there. Understood? Any problems out there? I think no problem should be. So that is what you do there. Okay, moving on. So you can take the things manually. You can take the number manually. Okay, let me take 7 plus 8j. So we're getting the square root there. Okay, this is how you will be getting this. So there are a lot of questions. You will be getting the assignments to solve on and then to move on. Okay. So similarly, you have how to just go and you'll be getting a quadratic equation. So how to solve that equation? Let's say I gave you an equation for a quadratic one. Let's say it's a kind of let me write it as. The more you practice, the more you will get to learn for that. Or you can say it is a program to just find the quadratic solution. Quadratic equation. So yeah. So anytime a quadratic equation, what you see is always in the form of a ax squared plus bx plus c, that is equals to the 0. Now where your a, b and c are the real numbers, and that must not be equals to 0. So for solving the quadratic equation, we'll be using this particular step. Okay. So again, there you have to import the C math. Okay. So we'll be using this C math out there. So we'll be writing just as import the C math, and then what we'll do is take out the 3 numbers from the user. Let it be ABC. So always try to make a user defined program so that it's good to work on. So let's take these as A, let's take this as B, and same for the C. So similarly you have these. Okay. So there we find the discriminant, right, and the solutions. So to find out the discriminants, in the quadratic equation, I'll write it as D, capital D is equals to, so what are the discriminant basically? It's B squared minus 4AC, right? You might be knowing that these things, that your discriminant of a quadratic equation is B square minus 4AC. Okay, so moving ahead. So now let's find out the solutions. So quadratic equation have 2 solutions, right? You have a 2 solution. Apart from doing all these things, we have a library NumPy and SciPy for those things for just on for mathematics calculation. But still, for doing with the basic things, as these are the basic, so I'll be doing with those things. So solutions would be, let's take S1 to be the solution 1. Let me write it. So solution 1 could be like I'm using first one. That solution 1 would be that minus of B dot or C math, or you can say B, sorry, it's minus of C math, and you will be finding the square root of the number, and that could be the discriminant first. So discriminant divided by the 2 multiplied by it. These are the formulas, right? So you use these things to find out the solution. Okay, that's a bracket missing out there. Similarly, for the solution 2, what you take is again, that is, for one is minus, the other is plus. C math of the SQRT, right? You get the 2 of the solutions as the plus and minus of the discriminant, then divided by. So you probably be getting it like if I write it as here. So whenever I write a quadratic equation, x square plus bx plus c, let it be ax square plus bx plus c. So here basically your discriminant is always b is equals to, what is the discriminant there now? What do you write? Sorry. There, minus d basically d discriminant is equals to the b square minus 4ac divided by sorry, that's all. Okay, so if when you find the solutions, you will have a solution for that. Okay, there you come with the two of the things. There you have your square root of under root of whatever it is. You just do it with the plus minus of those things. You come with the two of the solution. Let's suppose you got an x over there, so you'll be counting of the under root of x by 2 plus minus root of under root of x by 2. So that is kind of things you go on. Okay, so when you run this. Okay, let's take one more line for the printing because okay, tray say 0. What is the problem? Can't assign to the operators. It says. Okay, this is a probability function I'll be using. Let's take it as. So what to write the discriminant is equals to. Okay, the question has asked only for the solution, so let's give the solutions. The solutions you can write as so first you can write the solutions are, and then on you can write the first solution. So let it be solution 1, and then you can continue and the solution 2. So I think it would run, no problem would be there. Let's see. Say into the number, let's take 1, 4, 5 and 6. So it says the solution are this, and similarly that. Alright. So that are fine. So in case of a just in case of you want evaluations or complex numbers, you can take it from eval, and you can find it for, let's take 2, 5, 6, and you'll be getting it something like that. Okay, so these are the things you should mention on. Okay, yes, moving ahead now. So these are the kind you'll be getting a lot of questions in your assignment, okay, to do on. So these are the kind of things we do in the operators of the Boolean, you can say on. Okay, so moving up there now. So I think Boolean might you have just completed off with the things of the Boolean. So now we'll see the kind of the assignment operators. Okay, so before going to any of the things, we'll see for the assignment operators. So assignment operators works as you can say to assign the values to the variables whatever has been predefined. Okay. So the predefined will be assigning on the values. So let's take it as assignment variable, operators. So what I said, these are used to assign values to a predefined variables. Those variables which have been defined previously in the code, you will be assigning these values to them. Okay. Meanwhile, you can assign the new values to. Okay. So you assign the variables. You assign the you assign the codes to the variables. Alright. So let's take it one by one. So we have a lot of assignment operators to work on. Similarly, if I write it as the first operator we are using still from the beginning of the class, that is x is equals to 5. So this is the equal operator to you for assigning the value, right? You are assigning 5 to the x now. Now let's take that I have x now at present, okay, and I want some new value to be inserted in the x or to be added up in the x. What I'll do is, so what I'll do is x is equals to x plus whatever the value you want. That can be an integer, that can be a float. So there it could be. Okay. So it can be x plus 4, x plus 5, x plus 6, x plus 7, anything. So let's take x plus 5. So what I'm doing is x equals to x plus 5, right? So similarly, you are having x from the previous and you are adding 5 more to the x. So what your x will be there now? If you print your x, it will be 10 there, right? So now you are having x equals to 10, right? This is something. So instead of writing x equals to x plus 5, what you do is you write x is equals to, x plus equals to 5. That's all. So this means that x equals to x plus 5. Okay. So this states what? You are using x equals to x plus 5. Okay. This particular means this statement. So similarly, going ahead of that, if you go in the subtraction part, okay, so you have x equals x minus 5. So you will be taking it as x minus equals to 5. So your values will be changed accordingly there. Understood? Values will be changing accordingly. So if you take it like, okay, let's take an example. So if I now print the x value, it's less of a case mistake. So you get the x value, still the 10 there, and then 5 added up to be 15. Similarly, you will write for the x minus equals to 5. So you'll be getting out there x as the 10, 15 minus 10, you will be getting your 10 value. You have the same things for the multiplication, division and everything. Okay, so let me write for one by one. So you take it for the division. Let's take for the division what comes. So let's divide it by 2. So take 510. So now let's take to the power 3. So probably 125. That's correct. You can meanwhile take the integer division by 5. You will get 25. Okay, these are the things you are just making on to find out the values over there. You can just find out the remainder from that. So that could be probably a 5 or anything you want. So if you print your x, you will be getting 0.0. So these are the things you are just getting out there. Okay. So there basically you assign some of the values to your x and then you move up with the things. Alright, getting ahead more. So there are a lot of things to explore there in the assignment 1. I'll be giving you the assignments, so you'll be having these assignment operators in your assignment, right? So moving up to the next operator, you have it kind of we have completed comparison. Now we have completed the logical operators or the Boolean you can say. Now we go up to see for the identity operators. So identity operators are so let's take it as identity operators are very small things to complete just in one way particularly. So identity operators, someone has came. So these identity operators are used to just compare of the objects or the variables whether they are equal or not, or they are lying or not inside something or not. Okay. So these are just to compare. So let me write the definition. So you can write it as they are used to just compare down the objects. Alright. And then you can say that it's actually the same memory location. They are whether the objects are in same memory location or not. Okay, so they just go down to check whether the objects are at the same memory location or not. So in the identity, you have some two type of operators there. So you have probably is and is not. Okay. So you have one as kind of your is and the second as kind of the is not. So what are the functions of all these? So is, if you go with the is1, so is particularly is operator returns you the true if the variables you will be using is lying under the categories. Okay, let's take an example for that. So if you write for the is, like kind of. Okay, let's make it marked down. So, all right. So is work is to return you the true if both the variables are the same object. How? If we go and see it there. So how are the both objects? What are examples for them? Let's take off the things like let's take an example for that. Let's say I'm having x or I'm having a, and now my a is having some of the values. Now that can be anything. That can be a kind of a list or tuple. I'll be discussing those. Don't worry. So that can be anything now there. Okay. So we have some of the values there. So let's take that I have a list of objects there, and let's say these are let's say these AI or it kind of an ML or the DL particularly. Okay, so there are some of the things inside a list. So I'll be discussing later on what are lists there. So we have A and we have some of the objects there, right? Similarly, we have B and there we have some of the things. Let's say we have here open CV. There you have, let's take DL, or let's take you have let's take it's NumPy and so on. You have those things over there, right? So you have x, a and y now defined on a and y, and this will work as the same. Let's say if you print as a is b, so what you are doing is false. Why? Because everything of an a is not there in the b, right? Everything of an a is not there in the b. If it would have in a copy, let's take it as a copy. Don't go for the logic of this now. Just think of that a is this one and c is again the same things. Okay, so a and c are the same now. Just think it of that a and c is same, and I'm writing a is c. So what is the problem there? Same objects. Okay, yeah, sorry. So this will return you false because even if you have the same objects, say they are not the same contents there or kind of, okay, because they have some memory locations on the different types, so they are not the same, right? So if you want to see for the equals one, you can just write on the equal. If you say that x particularly a, or let's say a is equals, let's take something, let's take a is equals to ai. Similarly, let's take b equals to ml. Let's take c equals to dl. Alright, so we have some of the things there. Okay. Now, if I write just as a copy of these things, so if I make d and I say d is equals to a, I say d is equals to a. If I write x is d, so that will be giving you a false, why it's coming false over there. That might be same. Okay, that is a is d. So that is same. Alright. Let's write d is a. That since you are seeing now. Okay. So we have a equals ai, right? And we are taking it as equals to the d there. And then we are just comparing it whether it is equal or not. So if it is lying in the same object, it's having some of the memory management as the same, that will be giving you is. Similarly, is not will give you the 7 and 1. So if you write it for that, a is not of B. So that is again a correct because A is not of B, because there you have AI in the A and B in ML in the B. Okay, so this is the, you can say, as for identity operators. So is not will return you. Let me write for the is not. So these will particularly give you for right for the. So is not will just return you true if both of the variables are not the same object. So let me copy from here. So let me copy these and paste. So they are just used to again to compare the variables, and just you get the value. Just write for that one. That would be good to write. So returns true if both the variables are not in the same object. So just the difference of in not here. So that is your how is not works. Similarly, in and in not are the kind of membership operators, and they work the same. So in and in not I'll be going on later on. Okay. So let's do some of the next questions. So let's take now that I'm asking how to calculate the area of a triangle. The basic questions I'm just taking off, right? So how to calculate the area of a triangle? Just write down the logic. We are not going to write the program for that. Just write the logic here. Suppose I have the A, B, and C sides of a triangle. So what are the ways I can find out the area of that? Yes, write the logic here. So for every question we are not going to write a program. We will just see the logic of that. Yes, yes, even there out. Just write the logic first. You have A, B, C as the sides, or X, Y, Z, any of the three sides. So what are the things you will be applying for finding the area of a just a triangle? It is saying half into A to be exactly correct. Yes. Any more ways? Yes. Any more ways, guys? Anyone there? To any more? Okay. You can apply the Heroin's formula. You might have read in the class A plus B plus C by 3. Alright. Yeah, you might have read in the class 9th, I think, S minus A under root of S minus A, S minus B, S minus C, right? Remember? Add Heron's formula of check for the base and height. Finding the largest side, you will get to know the base and the height. Alright, someone remember this formula of the sides of S, and then for the S minus A, S minus B, and similarly or S minus C. There are methods to find out the things. So there are a lot of things. Alright, so next we see how the printing works on the various type of the things. If I want some of the variables and I want some of the techniques to be inbuilt from the printing one, how to we go for that? So let's take, I have some of the methods now for printing. So I'll be writing as for the methods of printing. So in the methods of printing you have, let's take that you have x, y, just as 12 and 24. Now see, if I want to print the value of x, what are the ways? I can write down that x is equals to x. Similarly, I can write down y is equals to y. So x is equals to 12 and y is equals to 24, right? So what are the ways I can write it down there? Okay, so let me discuss one by one. So you can also write it like giving a percentile over there. So you can write it like x equals %d. This is your percent similar in the string one. So x is equals to your %d, and then you give out a space, give a comma there, or just give a space, depends on you, and then you write it as y equals %d, and solve. Then you go for the percent, make out a bracket with it, and then you write the values of %d, that is your x and y. So what these x and y %d stands for here, that is, you are just going to print the percentile value. A percentile is something, your %d stands here. So similarly, your %d here stands for the integer, %s will stand for the string, and in the same way, your %f will stand for the float. Understood? So these are the things you will be having there. So, right? %d, s and f for their float and all these things. So let me write it as, just take it as for s, f, and d stands for your string, integer, and the float. Right? Alright. These are not defined. Let's take it as alright. So these three things are your string. The three things will be defining on for your strings, your float, and the integer. Now when you see the type, okay, typecasting we have done yesterday. We have saw how many type of that. So we have two types there, right? So we were having two types, one as the implicit type and the other as the explicit type. So what exactly was that? Again, I am revising that. Implicit was where the data types are changed automatically, right? Automatically the data types are being changed in the implicit ones. How? Because there, let's say you have x equals to 7, you have x and y. Let's say you are adding 3 plus 7.8. Okay, one is your integer, another is a float. So there what happens, automatically the data type has been changed. You can see the float now there. So automatically when your data type change, it is a kind of an implicit you can say as your implicit data type or implicit data casting, you can say, right? So there the data type automatically changed to float. Now we didn't specify that we want a float, but instead if you want an integer of that, so you want to do your data type manually. So what you're doing is that you will be giving some foundations for that. So that would be an integer value. So you'll be getting 10. So this is called as an explicit type casting, right? So we did all these things there. So yeah, moving ahead. Now see, the random numbers we have checked on. So there are a lot of things to explore with the random one. So similarly, if I want to print the 12 and 24 with some other methods, what I can do is I can use the x equals to. Now I'll be using this method there when I'll be dealing with the strings. So this stands for that x equals to braces, that is the format method of a string, right? We have methods in this string, so this is one of the method for the formatting out. So x equals to this, and say for y equals to this, and then you apply the format is equals to x as x comma y. So this is the kind of a string format method we're learning in the string methods when we'll start the strings, particularly the string data type. So then we'll be learning on these. So here we'll be getting the x equals to 12 and the y equals to 24. Okay. The next method is to print on just as the values x equals to. We have done this one or not? Yes. So the next is just you can write x equals something like. So can you print the x? So x equals to plus x. Can you do that? No, you can't do that. You have to find the str of x. So can you get it like that? So x is equals to 12. Similarly, you can write for the y equals to 12. So that must be of the same data type. So there are difference. There are a lot of differences there. Okay, if you take it as, so there are differences. If you take it as kind of x, this will print only the x. But if you write it as, still they are the strs. If you write the str of x, that will be the value of the str of x, right? So there are differences, not to be the same for every time, right? If you write anything inside a string, and if you think of that these would be similar, that is not exactly the same, right? Okay. So these are the methods, some of the methods how you can print it on. So what this f and this stands for, see. So I am having an integer 12 and 24. So similarly, I am using the %d out there. Okay. So if I don't have the just right kind of a, I want the output in kind of a float or something like that. So what I'll do is I'll be printing it in some other ways. Let's say I'm just printing x there. So let's take it for x is equals to %f, and then just specify the % value. So that could be x. So now you can see the f, that is your float. So automatically, even if the number is an integer, doesn't matter, it will just become in the float and you will be getting 12.0 from that. Understood? So similarly, if you have a float over there, so let's take you have g and that is a kind of a float. Let's take it's just a float over there. And now you want this to be come in the integer. So what you will do is, you'll just print it on x is equals to % of d, and then you'll write your x. Similarly, you can just pass it on to x. I'll see the difference of all these things. % of, okay, let's do one thing. So you'll see the difference of all these things. The first one stands, and 3 of the time there are x over there. Okay. So we have first five for the first time we have x equals to %d, that is your x equals to, you'll be getting an integer value of the x. So let it be g. So these are the g. Alright, so there you must be rename it. So you have %d, %f and %s over there. Okay. So what you do is just go and print all the things, you will see the difference. So what you are getting is, when you write %d of a float, that is your integer value. When you write %f of a float, you are getting the float value, or more the zeros after that. Okay, so by default you will be getting these zeros over there in your program. So almost up to 4, 5 zeros. Alright. And the third criteria, what you will see is there, that is your g equals to 12.45. That is exactly the same. So string will, as I said, string, anything you write inside the string will be printed as it is written there. Right? So that is what. Now let's see some of the modules to explore some of the questions over there. Right? So you have a lot of things to check. Now how to check whether a particular year is a leap year or not. Or there are a lot of things to just move on. So let's talk about some of the important questions. Alright, as I said, we'll be dealing with some of the important questions daily regarding the interviews of the companies and so on. Okay. Now, yesterday, as I said, for the calendar one, I think in the data science batch I was saying for that. Okay. Now, if you want to print a calendar for any particular year, what I'll do is, or any particular month, so there you have to bring out calendar type. This is one of the kind I'm using now. Okay, so see, now there, let's hope that you are you just want to print a particular calendar of a year. So you'll be using the import of the calendar. So moreover, you can just get on. So it says here the calendar library you are having for the reference. So we'll be getting a calendar library. So it uses the things that is class calendar, the first weekday or the ITER weekdays will return you an iterations of the weekdays of the number of things. Then similarly you have the month days, year month, right? So there are a lot of things to explore in the calendar one format here or a lot of things. HTML calendar used to generate the HTML calendars for those things, right? Have a various kind of things. So did you try to find out these things inside here or just coming up to here? So we'll be using calendar.month and we'll be using calendar.calendar, right? So we'll be using these things some of the times. Leap year, leap days is used to find. There are libraries working. That's why I'll say that Python is having an expensive libraries to work on for its methods, right? So we'll be using to print out the calendar one. So let's take that I want to find the just the calendar of some particular year. So for that what you'll do is, meanwhile you can also see the description. Here you will be getting all the methods, what this month to calendar does. It returns a matrix representing a month calendar, each row represents a week. Week entries are day number and weekday numbers and so on, right? So these says basically there, if you want the first week, we are writing these programs. So on, there are things you can just go on with these things. Okay. So let's print. We have imported the calendar. Let's write it again. And then it depends on what factors you are printing, whether you are taking an input user, you are taking an input from the user, or you are just taking it from your own. That depends on that. Suppose you just want to have a limited time, as I said when I was an interview, when I was giving the interview at Google, that happens with me that he just asked me with the just the birth month and the year for that, and then you were just asked to just print it out, and you're having a 15 to 10 seconds over there. At that time you just don't deal with just take an input and then take the input from the user and so on. So that time you will have to just cope up with your brain very fastly. So what you'll do is just write calendar, and it is not working. Alright. So you'll just write calendar dot the calendar, and then you write the year and the month. If you are writing for the year particularly, so for a year, what you'll do is you'll specify the year. Let's say it's for 2020. So this is a 2020 year calendar. So you can see it here. So this is the first basic step. You can just print it off for anything. So you just write calendar of a particular year. So that is 2020, and you'll be getting an year of that. Now, if you want a calendar of a particular month, that could be, so you must be probably learning what the number of instance a particular month come. So you're writing it as the print of your calendar, and then for the month name, sorry, the month, what do you want? Let's take you want the calendar of 2020, and it's running the 7th month, so you probably will be getting the July 2020, and today is what is today? 22nd. So today is Wednesday. Exactly. Is this? Yeah, today is Wednesday. Alright, so there are a lot of modules in the calendar one to focus on. Okay. So meanwhile, you can just solve on anything. So you can just try out to find your particular birth month or just anything. Okay. So these calendar might have some major, basically these libraries are not much used while in the just of the trainings, or sometimes when you attend the workshops you might not be get aware for these. No one says for that there we have a type of library called as calendar where we work with these all things, but these are the things which company focus on. Okay, so the companies just take it out that how to just go with the minimum use of libraries. These are the libraries which are used very less, not very less. These are used as compared to the all the libraries. If we say for the math library, so math is used much as compared as to calendar, but they are having the equal things, right? So you have a lot of things to operate on the calendar, right? You can just print out the year, width, or you can make some formatting of that. Okay, if you want the formatting of that, you can just make a format. So it depends on you. Let's see, if you want it like a print of calendar of 2020. Now it depends whatever you want. So let's say I'm writing the year, and then I'm writing the W, that is will be the width what I want of my calendar, right? I'll be writing the width now, what I want the width of my calendar. Similarly, I can write let it be 3. Okay, let it be that, and then I'll be writing the L, the length, and this is particularly the LWNC, LWNS. Okay, so if you write down the calendar, you will be seeing that what it does. I press the tab, and you will be working on that. You can see you have calendar, you have a date time of that, and everything for that, right? So let me write. So I want a calendar of a particular year and of the 2020, and I'll be giving my WLNC, that is the width of the characters, number of the lines, and column separations. I'll be giving it as 2, 1, and 6. Okay, so that particularly stands that you will be getting a calendar with these things. So by default, you just get it like that, right? Now it depends on what you write. So if you write that as your pen, so you can see the difference. So can you see the difference from this? You are getting us spaces over here. So that depends. You want 100 over there. So that is your kind of the printing. You can see. Let's make it small. Let's make 50. So that is also big. Let's make 30. Alright. 25 would be fine, I think. Okay. So the whole page just gets up with the 25. So that depends on what kind of you want. Let's say for 4, so you'll be getting a line of that. Okay. So these are the things to be mentioned up in the libraries. Works with a lot of things. Right? Now let's say you want to find the first week of your particular month, right? So for finding the first week, day, or like that. Okay. So first week, day number of any particular thing would be like if I print it as, let me go. So let's say I will be using now the first week day function. So first week day function will return the first week's day number basically. Okay. So by default it starts with the Monday. Okay. By default everything is start with the Monday in the calendar. Okay. So the I'll write it as calendar dot the calendar, and we are trying to find the first day, right? And then you pass out your values of the just the day or whatever you want. Okay. Just pass out the things. So if by default if you run this, you'll be getting the 0. So 0 specifically stands for your Monday, as I say. So by default it is the starting day of your number is your 0. Right. So as I said, it's by default Monday. You can specify your thing of your calendar particularly. So you can specify your one. So like that it happens. Okay. For getting a leap year or it's not a leap year, they have a lot of things to work on. You will be finding it by divided by 4 and so on. That like the programs on it. With the use of a calendar, what you will do is just you will go with the sum of the if and else. So when we'll read if and else, will make you understand. But still, I'm writing the program here. So because as I said, and on every day we'll be doing some different libraries in the last just for 20 minutes. So you will be checking at like kind of an if the calendar is a leap and you mention your year, let's take for 2021. So if the 2021 year is a leap year, so that's all. So you can check it like I'm not writing the if one. So you can check it like if whether this is a leap year or not. That's all. Okay. instead of going for writing it for dividing by 4 or then for doing some mathematical calculations. You have libraries to focus on. So name any leap year, guys. Anyone knows any leap year? Name any leap year there. When is it's coming a 4 in a year there? Which one could be a leap year? Like write a leap year there. Anyone? Any leap year? Just 2020 is a leap year. Or might be I did not focus on that. Yes, let's say it's a leap year. Alright. So 2020 is a leap year, right? So you have leap year days too. You have leap days, particularly the function to bring the leap days between the years. Okay. So now, if you want to find the difference, okay, leap year comes for only 2020 is there. 2000. Okay, 2000 is a leap year. So if I check for the 2000, so let me go and see whether the calendar dot is leap and 2000. So correct. So now if I want to find the number of days between these leap years, what I'll do is I'll calculate is the leap days between the 2000 and 2020. I'll be just writing it as the calendar dot is your not the is what it should be leap days, and then you find your first of the year date and then for the, so the number of the leap days between the 2000 and 2020 it's giving up as a 5 over there. Okay, so these are the things how you get there. Similarly, you have the month of the calendar. I have shown you how you can just go for the month of that, right? Alright. So these are the things we deal with the just calendar modules. You have a lot of things to explore there. You have to years calendar and a lot of things. You can just go home for today and just explore in one break. So your today's task, so not today's. Your everyday's task, I'll be dealing with some of the libraries. Okay, let it be for your data science or machine learning. We'll be doing the data science part and the machine learning part in your batches. But still, in the last half hour, we'll go with the Python basics, right? Not basics, the Python library module. So that has to come up with all the things together, right? So if you want that for the library of the calendar, so every day you have to excel yourself in one particular library. Suppose you go home today in the morning session and till I am taking the basics, okay? So for the AIML batches and for the data science batches, you can come in the 9 to 11 AM session because we are dealing with the Python basics. So for continuing with those, instead of coming in the 12 to 2 and then for your timing on that, you can come with the 9 to 11. So that's to get a good batch over here in the morning, and then you can have all the day to practice of that particular library, right? So we'll after the library basics complete of your batches, we'll switch to our normal daily classes on how we have. Okay. So today what your task is to complete the assignments as well as to get some of the excellence work in the calendar library. Okay, because these library are the things which could be asked anytime, any place. Okay, so it's not better why you use its calendar dot is leap and then you find the leap year or not. That is good instead of finding for calculating it for just by 4 or something like that. Right? Remember. So these are the things you should focus on. Libraries. So there is a calendar library. So your work will be to understand each one of the functions of these things. Anytime you don't understand how to work with that, just WhatsApp me. I'll let you know how to work. Okay. And I have a separate notebook for this calendar. I'll be building that. So I'll build that calendar notebook and will send to you. Okay. So meanwhile, you just go for today. You just see you have date time module also. We'll discuss date time tomorrow, and day after that we'll discuss the time one. So a lot of libraries will be discussed meanwhile. Yes. So any doubts in today's session? Let me stop this.